Only 20 wrestlers remain in the battle royal that is the 100 scariest wrestlers of all time. Is that dramatic enough? Hello and welcome back, Pro Wrestling Planet. 100 scariest wrestlers of all time countdown coming at you, and we've only got 20 more to go, which is kind of sad but very exciting all at the same time. To see who else made the list up to this point, I would suggest checking below for links to the other videos. I'm legally required to tell you at this point to make sure that you subscribe to the channel, you turn on notifications, and before you leave, please click the like button. Without any further ado, let's go. Number 20, Gangrel / The Brood. David Heath was born in 1969. He began wrestling in 1987. In 1998, he showed up as a character named Gangrel in the WWE. Before this, he was making a name for himself on the indies as Vampire Warrior. That's neither here nor there. What made this guy scary is that he was a vampire, obviously. He drank blood during every entrance. Then we found out that in real life he was married to Luna Vachon, and so that's another point for scariness right there. He brought Edge and Christian along for the ride, and they formed a stable called The Brood. Instead of there being one vampire, now there's 3 vampires, man. They were also scary because, you know, they would just be vampires and do like, you know, I don't know, Lost Boys stuff. Gangrel's WWE run ended in 2001, but they brought him back a few times over the years. He consistently worked on the independent circuit, especially here on the West Coast, which is awesome. Has worked as a trainer over the years, still technically currently active. We last saw him pop up randomly in All Elite Wrestling. Who knows when we'll see him again. Number 19, Andre the Giant. This is someone that would probably be traditionally overlooked in a lot of lists like this, but you can't deny the sheer size, the sheer monstrosity. Did I say sheer enough times? The inherent Superman Colossus-like strength and ability of Andre the Giant. The man literally owned the wrestling business because no one else could tell him that he did it. And that's really all I got to say about that. Number 18, Norman the Lunatic. This one I fought to have high on this list just because it's a little bit of a personal thing for me. I did a video about wrestlers that ruined my childhood, link in the description, and Norman the Lunatic was a huge part of that for me personally. We covered him earlier as Bastion Booger. What made Norman the Lunatic scary was, of course, his look. I mean, imagine meeting up with this guy in a back alley somewhere. Also, his actions and his name, they both kind of go hand in hand. It says it all right there. Lunatic. 502, don't be blue. That's what he used to say. I don't know. Look it up. Number 17, Demolition. This also throws back to my own personal beliefs right here. Nothing scared the crap out of me more as a young wrestling fan than Demolition. I mean, just take a look at these guys. I don't know what was scarier, the bondage masks that they would come out to the ring in, or the face paint that would be revealed thereafter. Like a scary sandwich of things. Started out with Axe and Smash, but then they added a third guy, Rush. If we weren't scary enough, here comes a third guy into the mix to ruin your nightmares and your dream. And as far as if we're putting them up against the Road Warriors, as far as pure scariness, I think Demolition takes the cake. I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have been so far apart on the list, but just me personally, I was always scared of Demolition. Road Warriors, not so much. Maybe because I always saw them as good guys, so it was a lot less scary. That makes sense. Number 16, Bray Wyatt. Wyndham Rotunda, rest his soul. We talked about the Wyatt family as a whole earlier. I just thought that the guy deserved his own induction separately, a little bit higher on the list here, because let's face it, from top to bottom, from a wrestling promo and a presentation standpoint, I don't know if anyone's done it better in the last 20, 30 years or so than the Bray Wyatt character itself. And if we're going to be more specific, this would be basically from when the character first started all the way up until when the Fiend stuff started happening. Hard to find the words, you know, but the guy will definitely be missed. One of the best to ever do it. It goes without saying that what made him scary Scary, of course, were his presence, his promos. You could even put the look into there. Definitely think I made my case on this one. We lost him here in this year of 2023. Number 15, the Great Muta. I don't want to mess up his name, but he was born in 1962. He began wrestling in 1984. American audiences first got to see him in Texas in 1988, and then on an even bigger scale in 1989 through World Championship Wrestling. And what made him scary, of course, was the fact that he didn't talk. Check. Spooky face paint. Check. Oh yeah, and blow in the mist. Check. See the Great Kabuki, who we inducted earlier. Very similar presentation as far as that goes. I would argue that Muta got to do this on a way larger scale, and it was basically the most people that had seen that character presented in that sort of way at that time. And that run was actually pretty short, and then he returned to Japan after that, where he lived out a legendary career. WCW did have him back in the NWO days, but it wasn't really quite the same. He was part of NWO Japan, though. He never ended up working for the E, but they did induct him into the Hall of Fame recently. So yeah, Muta, go figure. Not Wheeler Yuta, Great Muta. Number 14, the Missing Link. We're digging deep now, huh, guys? Bet no one saw this one coming. Byron Robertson was born in 1939. Holy smokes. He first began wrestling in the year of 1961. For a lot of his career, he wrestled as Crusader Robertson. In 1983, he adopted the gimmick of Max the Missing Link, and just a couple years later, under Vince McMahon in the WWE, he dropped the Max part and just became the Missing Link. It was short-lived, though, as he ended up in World Class right after that. He officially retired in 1996, but right before his death had unretired and had did some stuff on the indies. What made him scary, of course, was his look, his menacing presence, as well as his actions. That's kind of the holy trinity of scariness, if you will. We lost him in 2007 at the age of 68, but he'll always be remembered here as the 14th scariest wrestler of all time. Number 13, the Boogeyman. Martin Wright was born in 1964, and he entered the world of wrestling, oddly enough, through Tough Enough. This was in the year 2004, and even though that didn't really work out, he still ended up getting a developmental contract with the WWE and reporting to Ohio Valley Wrestling. There he developed this character of the Boogeyman, and the way that they did this character, it got over absolutely huge in Ohio Valley Wrestling. Then they zapped him up to the main roster, where he started haunting people on the grand scale on WWE programming. Obviously, we've got the look here, we've got the actions, we've got the fact that he ate worms. If there was ever going to be a perfect Boogeyman, I can't think of a better one than this guy right here, which I guess is saying a lot, but also nothing at the same time. Number 12, Jake the Snake Roberts. Born in 1955, Jake started wrestling in 1974. In 1983, he started to get pretty popular in Georgia Championship Wrestling. From there, the WWE came calling, and this is where he developed the grand character known as Jake the Snake Roberts. This is one of our earliest instances. Jake was very special because he was an anti-hero in a time in the 80s when there really wasn't a such thing. And even though for most of his career there, he was mainly thought of as a good guy, his presence, his promos, and having the snake also made him scary. So when he went to the dark side, we all knew that we were really screwed, because now the guy that we all liked with the snake is not such a good guy anymore, is he? And I would argue solely for his high placement or his attachment to one of the most gruesome angles of all time, when he unleashed his cobra on Randy Savage's arm. I think I've pled my case. Number 11, Kevin Sullivan. Sullivan was born in 1949 and began wrestling in 1970. His career was normal enough for a while, and then at some point in time, he got into Satanism, I guess. I don't know. There was stuff like this in his masked Lucifer character. Also later on in WCW as the Taskmaster had shades of this as well. And that's mainly what we'll focus on here, since that has such a broad audience. Might be kind of cheesy because it was with the Dungeon of Doom, but come on. At the time, I'll admit, seemed silly and ridiculous. Still would seem silly and ridiculous to someone watching it now with no subtext or context. But when you know what internet wrestling ring dwellers like myself know about Kevin Sullivan. I mean, who hasn't went down the YouTube rabbit hole about Kevin Sullivan, Chris Benoit, all that different stuff? The fact that he's linked to all that, even in just the most basic way of being the guy that Nancy Benoit left to go marry Chris. I don't know, man, to each their own, but I just find it interesting how these characters seep into the wrestling business, and the promoters are like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a Satan type character in there, yeah. And then I guess it just makes it weirder that the guy portraying that character is always in real life like, yep, I worship Satan. Does no one think that that's weird? Well, that's it, folks. Another 10 are down. There's only 10 more remaining. I am so very excited that we are almost to that coveted #1 spot. We've saved the best for last, who are going to be the 10 coveted names in the top 10 of the 100 scariest wrestlers of all time. There's only one way you can find out, and that's by subscribing to the channel right here, hitting that notification bell. I would very much appreciate it, and then you'll know when the next video comes out. It's a win-win, baby. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. Hope to see you next time right here on Pro Wrestling Planet.